Today I'm going to show you some different products that I like to keep on hand for my chickens in case of an emergency. I'll go over the different products in detail. I'll let you know what they do, why I like them, where you can find them, so that way you can consider keeping them on hand as well for your poultry in case you ever find yourself in a pickle. An emergency or an illness can strike at any time, so it's better to be prepared and to be safe instead of sorry. Today I'm going to quickly go over some different essential items that I think you should keep on hand if you're going to be keeping poultry. Think of it kind of like a poultry first aid kit. Just in case you have an emergency, it's always better safe than sorry, and when you're dealing with live animals, they deserve to have proper care. So I'll go over my recommendations, the uses for these items, and where you can get them. So the first one I'm going to start with is diatomaceous earth, and this one I will admit is a little bit controversial. I see some people that really love the product and some people that are strongly against it. This video is not going to be made to persuade you either way. I'm just going to tell you what I've learned about it through my own research and my own personal experience using it. However, if you're not comfortable using it, I'm not going to push it on you. Do your own research and do what you feel is right. And that goes along with all the rest of the products I'm going to mention. But I figured I'd start with this one and get the elephant out of the room. So diatomaceous earth, a lot of people like this because you can use it as a mite preventative. Since birds live outside, they are prone to mites. Diatomaceous earth is an all-natural product. Now keep in mind you do want to get the food grade one if you're dealing with your animals or if you're using it in your garden. It's a very, very fine powdery substance. I'll show you what it looks like. And when bugs such as mites, fleas, ticks, other insects like that walk across it, the fine powder slices them up and dries them out and they die. Because of this, I like to mix it into the bedding of my coop, and I also put it in a dust bath for the chickens. Chickens are going to naturally take dust baths. If you don't provide them with one, you'll see them digging little holes in the yard and taking a dust bath in there in the dirt. I use a little rubber bowl and I fill that with all-purpose sand and diatomaceous earth. We had a really, really powerful rainstorm last night, so that's why everything looks really muddy. I'm going to have to clean that out after the video. I opened up this area so that they could come graze on the grass. This little dramatic baby couldn't figure out how to get back to her mom. Very dramatic. But now that she's with her mom, she's happy again. Honeysuckle's a great mom. I have a video of when she adopted those two, so check that out if you're interested. But anyways, back on topic here. So as I was saying, I like to use this as a preventative, and since I've always used this from the start of when I got chickens, I'm proud to say I've never ever had a mite issue or a flea issue. I've never seen a tick on any of them. You can even mix it into their feed. I've heard some people say it acts as a natural dewormer, and I have other people say that there's not enough evidence to prove that. So I'm going to be honest, I am not positive that it works as a natural dewormer, but it doesn't hurt. So you can mix it into their feed. It can also prevent mold from developing on the feed, and it can also keep weevils out of the feed. And as you get closer to fall, a lot of regions become very prone to weevils, so it doesn't hurt to mix it into the feed for that. Now you don't want to overdo it, just a light coating over it. And again, since I'm admitting I don't know for sure if this really does act as a dewormer, because when it gets wet, once they swallow it, who knows how powerful it's going to be against any pests inside of them. But because of that reason, it's not a bad idea to talk to your vet and see what kind of stronger dewormers they recommend. It's because since they're outside in nature, it's not too uncommon for them to come across parasites, and it's always better to be safe than sorry. So that's one point of the controversy around this, because some people swear that it works, other people aren't so sure. I fall somewhere in the middle when it comes to being a natural dewormer, but I will say from personal experience, it's worked at keeping the mites away. Now, another reason why this product is slightly controversial is because it is extremely powdery, which means it is not good to be breathed in. I always tell people in my other videos, if you're mixing this into their bedding or using this at all, use caution. It's not a bad idea to wear a respirator, put some glasses on when you're cleaning out the coop. That way, when you stir it all up, you don't accidentally inhale it, because you don't want something that powdery and dry in your lungs. So yeah, the humans can protect themselves that way and just be smart when they're applying it. Now, some people say it's not fair to the chickens because they're going to breathe it in, and it's not good for them either because birds have very delicate respiratory systems. Well, birds are naturally dusty animals, so whether you use this or not, their area is going to be quite dusty. And like I said earlier, they take dust baths. It's what they do. It's in their nature. So they're going to find any kind of dry, powdery dirt and roll around in it, or any dry sand, because that's just what their instinct is telling them to do. That's how they keep themselves clean. So whether or not you provide diatomaceous earth, they're going to find the driest, dustiest spot and roll around in it and create a powdery dust, and they'll be breathing it in regardless. So that is one thing to keep in mind, and to be a little bit realistic about that. And then another point that makes sense to me is that, unfortunately, chickens don't live that long. Most breeds live about 5 to 10 years, and even 10 sometimes is pushing it. And if you free range them, unfortunately, a lot of birds die their first year or two of life just because of all the predators that want to eat a chicken. So my point about that is, since they don't live as long as people do, it's not entirely fair to say that this will have the same long-term damage on their lungs as it would on ours, because they're not going to be around as long as us. So something like this over time would of course affect a human if they were exposed to it nonstop. But since these guys unfortunately aren't here for a very long time, they're not going to have the same long-term buildup. And plus, mites and fleas and ticks can cause a slew of issues for them, so it's really good to err on the side of caution and make sure you're preventing them the best that you can. Chickens are here for a good time, not a long time. So we need to try to provide the best care that we can while also being realistic about it. Oh, and if you see Marigold in the background, don't worry, she's not sick. If you have chickens, you probably know what's going on. If you're new to it, I'll explain it real quick. She is going through her molting season. It's perfectly natural. Birds can't lose all of their feathers all at once or they would freeze. So they just lose them in little patches gradually. They grow back slowly. So that's why she's looking a bit rough right now, but it's perfectly natural. And yes, I do have a few different videos of how to deal with molt. So this kind of goes hand in hand with diatomaceous earth. It's not a bad idea to also keep actual sprays on hand just in case. Whenever I clean out the coops, I like to spray this in it. It's all natural, so it's perfectly safe to spray on the birds and in the coop, and I spray it on their roosts. And I use nesting pads in their nesting boxes, and before I put new ones in, I spray these under the pads, let it dry, and then I put the pads in. So between using these and the diatomaceous earth, I've never had a mite issue. And this is something I've talked about in other videos. I swear by this product. I absolutely love it. This has helped me out more times than I can count. We've had an extremely brutal summer this year. It's been really, really hot. We had some days where between the heat and the humidity, it felt like 115 degrees. And we didn't really get any breaks from it. It was for many, many weeks straight. It was that brutal. Hardly any rain. And some of my older birds were struggling a little bit. And when I gave them this, it's a very strong vitamin supplement. It's safe for all different types of poultry, all different ages. And when I added this to their water, it was like night and day. They got better so much faster. So this is something that you can mix into their water, or you can put it directly into their mouth if you need something fast acting, if it's a serious situation. And that being said, of course, if something is serious, make sure you contact your vet as well. Isolate any birds that are truly sick. This is also good if you have birds that are traveling, or maybe some new chicks that you just got from the mail. This is a great thing to help them recover. Certain breeds, such as silkies, are prone to vitamin deficiencies, so this is a great thing to keep on hand when you have silkies. Luckily, I've never had an issue with any of my silkies, but it's good to have just in case. So if you have a bird that's old, sick, has shipping stress, or if you're just experiencing extreme weather, whether it be extreme heat or prolonged cold, this is a great thing to add to their water. And I will always keep this product on hand because you never know when you're going to wake up to an emergency. And like I was talking about the extreme heat we had earlier, electrolytes are another good thing to keep on hand for that. Or if you have a bird that's experiencing diarrhea. I've only ever had that once, and I gave her some electrolytes and some of that Nutri-Drench, and she was better within a day. It's hard to say exactly what happened. I think she may have gotten into a plant that maybe made her sick. I had noticed some pokeberries growing too close to the enclosure, and it was behind it, kind of blending in with the other brush, and I totally missed it. But as soon as I investigated and found that, I fully removed it. Some bird species can eat the pokeberries, but I don't know if chickens can. So I'm not positive if that's what made her sick, but when I removed it and gave her this and the Nutri-Drench, she was better within a day. And then by 2 full days, she was 100% back to her old self. But the leaves of that plant are toxic, so that's just something to keep in mind. But for this, you just mix 1 packet to a gallon of water. It comes in a pack of 3, as you can see. And it is recommended that if you're using this, to provide them with this and then another separate drinking bowl or water of just plain water, so that way they have the option to get fresh water too and they don't get overloaded on electrolytes. This is also really good if you're just getting baby chicks in the mail, because the shipping stress can be a bit much for chicks that young, so this helps them to recover quickly. This same brand, Save a Chick, also has a very similar line of probiotics, and it comes in a pack of 3, and it's the same thing. Mix 1 packet to a gallon of water. I always use those whenever I get new chicks in the mail at my store that I work at, or if I get them for myself personally, because again, probiotics, you can't go wrong with that. Gut health affects the whole body, so you want to get your chicks off to a strong start. And it's not a bad thing to keep on hand for the adults either, especially if you notice them going through a rough time or if you're having some weather extremes. A lot of feeds do have probiotics and prebiotics in them already, but it doesn't hurt to give them that little extra boost. Another great thing to keep on hand in case you have an emergency are some wound care products. Vetericyn is a great product because it can help with a number of different things. It's non-toxic and it doesn't have alcohol, so it shouldn't sting. It's safe for chicks, adult birds. It won't hurt them if it gets ingested. Here's a look at the ingredients and directions of use. And all of these products I just showed you, you can get at your local feed store. I always say if you can support a local shop, please do that first. If for some reason there's not a local store around you, you can find it at TSC, probably Chewy, or even Amazon. But like I said, please consider supporting a local family business if you can. So now we're going to head inside and I'm going to show you some more wound care items that I keep on hand just in case there's an emergency. Alright, so some more wound care items that are good to keep on hand are vet wrap. Again, you can get this at your feed store. It's usually in the equine section. So we got that. I recommend avoiding anything really bright or like neon colors. Avoid red because you don't want them to think it's blood and peck at it, because as gross as it is, chickens can be cannibalistic, so you don't want them picking on one if they have something colorful and shiny and exciting on. So get something kind of plain, something that might blend in with their feathers. You could also pick up some gauze, which sometimes you can get that at the feed store, but of course you can also get it at Walmart or CVS. You can find it online. And then we also have some antibiotic cream, just in case. If you have a wound, you could rinse it out with Vetericyn, put some antibiotic ointment on it, and then get it nice and closed up so that you don't get infection, you don't get anyone pecking at it, and you can keep the bugs out if it's summertime and the flies are going crazy. And like I was just saying, chickens unfortunately can be cannibalistic, so if you notice one that's injured and it's getting picked on by the others, you can get Pick No More cover-up lotion by Rooster Booster. Most feed stores will carry this. Here's the directions for use. I'll let you read that and I'll continue talking about this. But basically, this has a very gross taste that they are not supposed to like, so if you put this around the area that the birds are pecking at, it's supposed to discourage them from pecking. And if you find a bird that's messing with its own wound just because it's uncomfortable, this will also, of course, help to discourage the bird from pecking at itself as well. Just make sure you don't accidentally get this in your eyes or the bird's eyes because it will sting. Fortunately, I have never had to use this product, but like I was saying, it's inexpensive and it's great to have on hand because if you find yourself in a situation where you do need it, it's great to just be able to run in, grab it out of your cabinet or your first aid kit, and be ready to fix the situation instead of having to run out and look for it somewhere. And then this is something that you don't necessarily need to keep it on hand. Unless you're dealing with large quantities of birds, then it's not a terrible idea. But the reason I say you don't necessarily need to keep it on hand is because it could expire. And you don't want to waste your money on something that you might not use, but it is good to be aware of this product and know a game plan of where you can get it if you ever find yourself in a situation where you need it. You can get this at pretty much any feed store. If for some reason your feed store is out, you can get it on Amazon. You don't want to put it off too long. If you notice symptoms of coccidiosis, that is what this treats. So if you find yourself in a pinch and you just don't see it at your local store, then you can call a veterinarian and you can usually get it from them. So Amprolium, you may be familiar with this. This is the medication that is in medicated chick feed. Medicated chick feed is used to prevent coccidiosis, but it doesn't really work as a treatment. It's not a strong enough dose in the feed. So you can't feed your bird medicated chick feed if they already have coccidiosis and expect it to go away. If you already have a case of that on your hands, you need to treat it with the full-on medication. The main and first symptom of coccidiosis that you will notice is bloody stool. Birds are great at hiding symptoms, and early on, they may not even act like anything's wrong, but if you notice the bloody stool, make sure you act fast and treat the whole flock or isolate that bird if you can, if you know which one the bloody stool came from, because this is something that could spread. You can mix it in their water, and while technically there's not an egg withdrawal period with this medication, if you're not comfortable with that, you can go ahead and toss the eggs for a couple weeks or scramble them and feed them back to your birds so you don't waste it. But yeah, you can mix it right in their water. It's super easy. Now, if it goes untreated, you're going to notice your birds being lethargic. You may see diarrhea. And if it goes untreated, it could even cause death. Those two little salmon Favrel chicks out there that you saw my Selkie taking care of, right after I had gotten them, so they were very, very new to me, I noticed that one of them was having bloody stool. They acted totally normal, but thank God I noticed the bloody stool because I knew something was wrong. So I got this. They were technically around the other birds because I had them in an enclosure in the coop so they could all get used to each other. But since they were so small at the time and they were in their own cage, the other birds weren't around their stool, which means that their chances of catching it were a lot more slim. But to be on the safe side, I treated everyone and they all did great. The bloody stool cleared up from that one chick after about 1 day. So it's great to be vigilant, always check on your flock and make sure they look normal. This did wonders, it worked great, and everyone is really healthy and happy now. And while we're on the topic of medication, it's not a bad idea to keep a little eyedropper or a syringe. A syringe is actually easier because it has the measurements on there for you, just in case you have to apply something orally. But like I said, I just mixed this into their water and they did fine. It was recommended to me that I add 1 to 2 teaspoons of this per gallon of water for 5 to 7 days, and after that it cleared up. If you don't have it clear up after the 5 to 7 days, or if they're getting worse in between them, please contact your vet. Luckily, I did not have to deal with that. Look how cute Monkey is. Another great thing to keep on hand is poultry grit. If you own chickens, then you should know that they do swallow their food whole, and because of that, they need grit, which is basically just little stones, and that will aid in digestion. When they swallow the stones, it'll help grind up the feed, so it's especially important if they're eating treats such as scratch grains, or sunflower seeds, or whole shell corn. Poultry of all ages can have grit. They should always have access to it so that they don't have any issues with their crop or their digestion. I've found that a lot of people get confused with grit and oyster shell. Sometimes they think that they are both the same thing or that they both can help in similar ways, but they're totally different products. So the grit, as I just mentioned, is just little pieces of stone to aid in digestion. Oyster shell, on the other hand, is a calcium source, and really the only poultry that would need that are poultry that are laying eggs. And since I have laying hens, I keep oyster shell on hand as well. So I hope you found this video helpful. Those are just a few of the different emergency items I keep on hand. I feel like you can never stop learning, so I'm going to continue to do more research, and as I learn more things and learn about new products, I will keep you guys updated. I'm going to try to plan, I'm going to aim for like maybe winter time, do a more in-depth updated first aid care video where I'll show you some more products I keep on hand and maybe go into more details about the ones I mentioned here. If you'd be interested in that, make sure you subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. And I will see you in the next video.